In the little Jamaican village of Harmony Hill, nestled between the Blue Mountains and the sparkling sea, there was always a good bit of rivalry between the SDA Seventh-day Adventist Church and the Apostolic Church. The two congregations respected each other, but when it came to certain things like food, they were as different as chalk and cheese. Now, everyone in the village knew that the SDA church members were strict about their diet. They didn't touch pork, not even a slice of bacon. On the other hand, the Apostolic members had no such qualms. They loved their pork, from jerk pork to stew pork, and they made sure to let everyone know just how much they enjoyed it. One Sunday afternoon, after a particularly lively service, Pastor Brown of the SDA Church and Bishop White of the Apostolic Church found themselves sitting under the big mango tree in the village square, chatting as they often did. The conversation soon turned to food, as it usually did, and before long, the topic of pork came up. Pastor Brown, Bishop White began with a grin. You know, the Apostolic folks really love their pork. Me can't imagine going a day without a nice plate of jerk pork. Pastor Brown chuckled. Yes, me know, Bishop. But you also know we SDA don't eat pork. We prefer to stick to clean meats, like fish. Bishop White, never one to miss an opportunity for a little friendly teasing, leaned in and said, "But Pastor, don't you ever wonder what you missing? A little taste of the good stuff." Pastor Brown laughed and shook his head. Not at all, Bishop. But I'll tell you what, I bet you Apostolic folks couldn't handle a real pork-eating competition. You might talk big, but me think DSDA could out-eat you any day. Bishop White's eyes widened in surprise. What? You saying DSDA could out-eat the Apostolic in a pork-eating competition? Pastor, me think you dreaming. Pastor Brown's eyes twinkled with mischief. Alright then, let's settle it once and for all. We'll have a pork-eating showdown next Sunday after service. The church that eat the most pork win the title of Pork Champion of Harmony Hill. What you say? Bishop White burst out laughing. You on, Pastor. But don't come crying when me congregation wipe the floor with you. And so, the great pork-eating showdown was set. Word spread through the village like wildfire, and by the time the next Sunday rolled around, everyone was buzzing with excitement. The villagers couldn't wait to see which church would come out on top, and most of all, they were eager to see the SDA members try their hand at eating pork. The big day arrived, and the village square was transformed into a grand arena, with long tables set up and plates piled high with every kind of pork dish imaginable: jerk pork, roast pork, stew pork, and even a few trays of crispy fried pork skin. The smell alone was enough to make your mouth water. On one side of the square, the Apostolic congregation, led by Bishop White, was ready and raring to go. They had come prepared with big appetites and even bigger egos. On the other side, the SDA congregation, led by Pastor Brown, looked a bit more hesitant, but they were determined not to back down. The villagers gathered around, cheering and placing bets on who would win. Miss Myrtle, the village gossip, was taking bets left, right, and center. Me got $20 on the Apostolic, one villager shouted, while another declared, me putting me money on the SDA. They might surprise you. With the tables set and the food steaming hot, Pastor Brown and Bishop White took their places at the head of their respective teams. A big clock was placed in the middle of the square to keep time, and the rules were simple. Whichever team ate the most pork in 1 hour would be declared the winner. Pastor Brown raised his hand, signaling for silence. Alright, everyone. We here for a friendly competition, so let's have some fun. And remember, it's not just about how much you eat, it's about how much you enjoy the food. Bishop White grinned. Well, Pastor, me can guarantee we going to enjoy every bite. With that, the clock was set and the competition began. The Apostolic team dug in with gusto, tearing into the pork like there was no tomorrow. They were chewing, chomping, and smacking their lips with delight, washing it all down with cold bottles of Ting and Sorrel. They were in their element and it showed. On the other side, the SDA team was struggling. They stared at the pork like it was a plate of alien food. Some of them gingerly picked up a piece of roast pork, sniffed it cautiously, and then took the tiniest bite possible. The look of surprise on their faces was priceless. Some were pleasantly surprised, while others looked like they'd bitten into a lemon. Pastor Brown, determined not to lose face, picked up a piece of jerk pork and took a big bite. His eyes widened as the spicy, smoky flavor hit his taste buds. "Boy, this not bad at all," he exclaimed, grabbing another piece. The villagers roared with laughter as they watched the SDA teen struggle to keep up. Miss Myrtle was in stitches, fanning herself as she shouted, "Me can't believe me eyes. Look at dem SDA, trying to eat pork like the Apostolic." Meanwhile, Bishop White and his team were going strong, piling up empty plates and patting their bellies with satisfaction. "You see, Pastor?" Bishop White called out between bites. "Me tell you, the Apostolic know how to eat pork." But then something unexpected happened. Just when it looked like the SDA team was going to be defeated, they found their second wind. Pastor Brown, leading by example, started devouring the pork with enthusiasm, and his congregation followed suit. The more they ate, the more they seemed to enjoy it. The Apostolic team, who had been so confident at the start, began to slow down. Their eyes were bigger than their bellies, and soon they were groaning and clutching their stomachs. "Me can't eat another bite," one of them moaned, while another mumbled, "Me need to lie down." With just a few minutes left on the clock, it was neck and neck. The SDA team had caught up, and both sides were down to their last few pieces of pork. The villagers were on the edge of their seats, cheering and laughing as the final moments ticked away. In the end, the clock struck 0 and the square erupted in applause. Both teams collapsed onto their benches, panting and wiping sweat from their brows. Pastor Brown and Bishop White stood up, wobbling a bit from all the food they'd eaten. They looked at each other, then at the tables piled high with empty plates. It was a tie! The villagers burst into laughter, clapping and cheering for both teams. "Looks like you both champions," Miss Myrtle declared, waving her fan. "Now, you can say DSDA and the Apostolic both know how to eat pork." Pastor Brown, still catching his breath, grinned at Bishop White. "Boy, Bishop, me never thought me would say this, but that pork was real good." Bishop White laughed and clapped him on the back. "Me glad you enjoyed it, Pastor. But don't worry, me won't tell you congregation if you don't tell mine." And so, the great pork-eating showdown ended in laughter and camaraderie. The rivalry between the SDA and Apostolic churches continued, but with a newfound respect for each other's culinary skills. From that day on, whenever the topic of pork came up in the village, everyone would remember the showdown and have a good laugh. As for the villagers, they had a story to tell for generations, a story about the day when the SDA and Apostolic churches put aside their differences and proved that when it comes to food, especially good old Jamaican pork, everyone's a winner.